So 2021 is coming to a close, and perhaps you're thinking like me, how exactly can a year go by so quickly? And I really wish I had an answer to that question, but time keeps marching on. Well, with the year going by so quickly, I actually did not have as much time as usual to play games in my free time, as I was working on DF and had all these family things going on. But the games I did end up playing, I did find they were rather awesome and great. And here I hope with my little Game of the Year video here that I can show off some of these hidden gems or convince you to try out some games that you may not have tried out before. And I think will be a couple titles here that not a lot of people have played. Now, this list of games that I'm going to be talking about here is not in any particular order of quality or anything like that. It's just to highlight these games and talk about them and get you to maybe try them out. But enough quacking from me here. Let's move on to the games, starting out with a game I most definitely did not cover for DF, and that is Death Trash. Death Trash is a game which has been in development since 2015, and it's made by a team of 4 that is released into Steam Early Access and still finds itself in active development. Early access on Steam can mean a game is rather rough, but this is far from the case here with Death Trash. And with the way the game currently functions, if you play the game now, even in its early access state, your save will carry over to the game just fine when it leaves early access at some point in the future, so don't worry about that. Death Trash to me really exemplifies some of my favorite aspects of role-playing games, and that is why it is on this list. The basics of the game are actually bog standard in terms of archetypes one has come to know in the CRPG genre. You come into a new and strange world with little background story, and you have to find out about how this world works, what your place is in it, by engaging with the characters, and progressing the story by moving throughout the world and doing different missions. Death Trash's first real break from the mold, though, happens in the world itself. You are cast out from a society that you don't really remember so well, and you're on this world's surface, emerging from its depths in the beginning. You find everything broken, with few survivors at all populating the surface, or towns that manage to scrap on by between the mutants and reavers in the wastes. Everywhere you look, there are mutated growths of flesh taken over the environment. Lowly flesh worms crawl on the ground, and as you immediately stumble out onto the earth, there's a giant flesh beast that converses with you telepathically. There's a general wrongness of the things you're seeing in this world, and a lot of it is left unexplained. That wrongness and unexplained nature of the world in Death Trash pulled me in like no other game in fiction that I've seen in quite some time. Do I really want to enter the Flesh Nexus? I'm not sure. Those moments in role-playing games are some of my favorites, where the game presents you with some sort of mysterious option, and you're not sure what the outcome of your actions will be. And a lot of the interactions in Death Trash exude this feeling. That is not to say the game only evokes this type of feeling of dread and unknown. It has evoked a lot of other feelings as well, such as laughter. Your main character is afflicted with a malady of sorts, and as a game and story mechanic, you vomit to stave off infection. This made me burst out laughing the first time it happened, and then I realized you could do it on command, and let me tell you, I was laughing for quite some time. So alongside this kind of dread and unknown feeling the game exudes, you also have a morbid sense of humor that mixes with this grotesqueness. It is very endearing. Mechanically, the game is solid too, of course. In a classic CRPG manner, you have a character sheet where you build out your character's strengths with a point-based experience system. You enhance your conversational abilities, your stealth, or different modes of combat, which is all done in real time, by the way, and is incredibly brutal and quick. Environments and the enemies in the game are very hostile, so you can die very, very quickly. So being careful with the little life and ammo you have is actually a must. You may not want to engage with the mutants or gangers in the game, and I like that scarcity-induced decision-making that this game has. It makes the world seem even more alive and dangerous to me. The last bit about Death Trash that I absolutely love is the general look and sound of the game. It is, of course, very visual, low fidelity, and I think it works wonders here for selling the desolation and grime of the environments you find yourself in, as well as allowing you enough room for imagination about what exactly you're looking at in that pixelated mess. The recording I made of this game for this video is primarily in 4K, but the internal resolution of the art is obviously sub-HD. So unsurprisingly, the game looks absolutely fantastic on a CRT. Backing up these grungy visuals is a minimalistic soundtrack filled with electronic backwash, groans, buzzes, and hums. I'm reminded of the tones found in Doom 64, or the uncanny backtrack of a scene from a David Lynch film. Generally unnerving atmospheric stuff that has blanks in between the instrumentation filled with howls of wind. In summary, without spoiling too much about Death Trash, it is my favorite isometric RPG I've played in years, and if you love the grotesque, if you love the unknown, and if you love being punished with a nice dose of humor, then this game is most definitely for you too. My next game on the list is quite a bit more straightforward than Death Trash, and that is Forgive Me Father by Bite Barrel. I say the game is straightforward because it is mechanically uncomplex given the genre it is in. Have gun, shoot gun, find key, stay alive, finish level, repeat. Simple rules that, ever since Doom, have made this type of first-person shooter so incredibly easy to prototype, but actually hard to master and design. Forgive Me Father is thankfully a quality and satisfying first-person shooter. First, you have the shooting itself. Your guns crack and do massive damage, accompanied by spurts of viscera. This is something that is so easy to mess up, as countless quote-unquote Doom clones of the 90s showcase really well. Then you have the enemy types, or bestiary. Now, this is usually very game and setting dependent, but due to the eldritch setting of this game, enemy archetypes all look suitably different and remain mechanically distinct. And interestingly, there are also no hit scan enemy types here, so you always get a good chance to dodge what is coming at you. As part of this, Forgive Me Father also has enemy types that are level specific, like those funky fishermen on the docks level, or the patients in the asylum level. Those are nice little narrative touches that I really like to see in a first-person shooter. So here I've basically been describing a number of things that a lot of FPS games, and especially boomer shooter FPS games, do really well, but this game of course does some things that are different. It plays into its eldritch theme rather well in the gameplay. Madness levels increase your character's power in combat. So in this game, the more and quicker you kill and shoot, your madness increases and the more powerful your weaponry becomes. You can notice this happening in the game as the visuals start to desaturate intensely and blood effects become more pronounced. I really like the rhythm this adds into the gameplay, rewarding fast and smart gameplay with more damage for the player. Visually, the game also has some great strengths. It has a comic book art style, with characters and objects having inky black outlines, and it announces all sound effects with action text, and all narrative elements in the game are called out diegetically, and when they are presented to you, they're also in a comic panel kind of manner. Some specific things I really love are the usage of the Unreal Engine effects like depth of the field whenever you do any of the special actions, like the healing crucifix or lifting up your lamp to see into the dark parts of a level. With all those positives being said, this game is still early access, and like many in active development games, it is of course imperfect. Sure, I love the art style touches that I mentioned, but in some moments I feel like Unreal Engine is shining through a bit too much. Like the bloom, which to me looks very Unreal Engine and not very comic book-like. Or you have the usage of specularity on certain surfaces. I have the feeling the game will look better without any specular lighting at all actually, and instead only used diffuse lighting. But those are minor gripes and few and far between, and the quality is otherwise well on show in this title. So if you like classic first-person shooters and really like satisfying weapons, then I definitely recommend giving Forgive Me Father a try. And a surprise here, my third game on this list here is not even one you can play on PC, and that is Housemarque's Returnal. Now, in my video covering this game on PlayStation 5, I went over a lot of the aspects as to why I surprised myself with this game's quality. The setting and the overall visual look was essential in my enjoyment of Returnal in the time I played it. Think of it as a cross between Prometheus, Sphere, Moon, Solaris, and a few other science fiction giants, all with that foreboding, dark feeling that you are in a place that you really should not be, that you don't really understand, and there's no escape for you as you live and die to relive the nightmare again and again. Ooh, that's brutal stuff. I love that kind of stuff, so I felt right at home, and Returnal's nightmarish world really added to my enjoyment of it. And there was also scattered bits of body horror that weren't too bad too. Another part of Returnal's design that won me over was the base gameplay. The dodging, the weaving through the bullet hell-like patterns of attacks that enemies throw at you. Adding to this bullet hell arena were the gorgeous graphics for all the particle effects flying around you in the mayhem, sometimes maybe dazzling you a bit too much before you remember that they are deadly to the touch. Dodging and shooting gameplay is actually pretty old school when you think about it, and it harkens definitely back to Housemarque's previous games, all of which were arcade-like, but instead on 2D playing fields. Returnal builds on that tradition, but rebalances and modernizes the gameplay, of course, with third-person shooting in a 3D environment, and it generally does it really well without all the cheap unfairness that one tends to feel after playing an arcade game. Well, I say usually, at least. I personally felt it a bit more and more until I stopped playing Returnal and I did not actually end up beating it. This is very specific to me, of course, but given the complex 3D spaces and combat this takes place in, how you have to pivot and acquire targets quickly, I did find myself getting frustrated increasingly as the game became more difficult, as I could not really control the instrument in my hands, the controller. For someone like me, I really need a mouse and keyboard, and I hope that there's a PC port in the cards at some point in the future, at which point it will probably re-enter this list again as being one of my games of the year. Now, if you watch Digital Foundry, I think the fourth game on this list will be rather obvious to you, and that is Arcane's Deathloop. We at DF really loved this game, and I loved it especially as Deathloop solves a number of long-standing issues that I've had with immersive sims. They present you with options for combat and stealth, but I have a general terror of long-lasting negative repercussions on the story. And if the game has a saving system, I always end up save scumming and non-lethal stealthing my way through a game, even though I don't actually always want to be doing that. Sure, that is a personal problem, but Deathloop's style of immersive simness mechanically excises that dilemma for me by making the general killing in the game consequence-free usually, and it lacks the ability to save anywhere. It instead makes you have a limited number of respawns until you have to restart the mission completely. This freed me from my shackles, and I ended up playing Deathloop in a natural way where I could stealth as much as I really wanted to until my mistake was made or the general gameplay systems of the game made stealth an impossibility, in which case I would transition to a take no prisoners mode and butcher everything in sight in the loudest way possible. This was really satisfying, by the way, and that is not a given. Immersive sims don't always have the best gunplay. Deathloop's guns boom with cartoony violence, and this is coupled with flashy animations and sweet per-object motion blur that made the general shooting and slashing in the game really satisfying. And that's not something I can say of something like the Dishonored series. So when combat would break out, I would enjoy it thoroughly, instead of feeling like I wish the game had a save anywhere system so I could just save scum and reload and stealth again. Now, there are other aspects in Deathloop that I really enjoyed, but I think the wider gaming press and the audience for this game in general has already talked and praised and critiqued it to death at this point. So I don't really have too much to add, actually. I just simply recommend Deathloop to anyone who is intrigued by games like Deus Ex or Dishonored, but was always frightened away by the weight of decision-making that those games kind of have. It cured me of my save scumming ailment, and I'm all the happier for it. The The last game on this list is one that I did not expect would necessarily be on it, because before it launched, I think Age of Empires 4 did not do a great job of advertising itself. Pre-release, I thought AoE 4 looked not too hot, thought the graphics were overly simplistic, that they had not demonstrated the game's campaign in a meaningful way, and that we were getting a game that was going to ride on the coattails of the series' success in the past, made by completely different developers than the original, betting on success through nostalgia. I'm so happy that I was utterly wrong about Age of Empires 4. Relic Entertainment and World's Edge have created the best Age of Empires game since the second one, as I see it, being vastly more engaging than that oddly bloated third game. I talked about this a lot in my review of the game but a few months ago, as Age of Empires 4 taps into that part of my brain that loves history and also that satisfaction that happens when a rather large plan comes together. AoE 4 engages with history in broad strokes, of course, with you taking command of the winners of hundreds of years of conflict, all told through the game announcer and all the various scenes in the game and places you fight, as well as in the very well-produced documentarian-style videos between the action. For me, I always liked Age of Empires so much due to its basis in real history, and AoE 4 embraced that in a serious way that was honest. And I liked it a lot more than the semi-embarrassing attempts to tell stories in history with fake accents and cultural stereotypes that we saw in the third, second, and first games. The second part of my brain that AoE 4 touches in a great way is the one that loves to see a plan come to fruition. This is inherent, of course, into the RTS genre. Your command decisions of building so and so many villagers or builders, or your command decision to place so and so many barracks here or there, or your command decision to mix troops and have certain tactical decisions all culminate together with a victory. And in an RTS game, a victory can take an hour or more depending upon the higher difficulty settings in the game. It is ultimately satisfying when victory happens like this in this genre of a game, and you see all your units scurrying about the battlefield as the last enemy stronghold crumbles. My favorite RTS games evoke this feeling in me, like Dawn of War 2 or Homeworld, and tick this part of my brain where a plan comes to fruition after a lot of planning and work over an hour's period. So bravo Relic and World's Edge. You have successfully created a great entry into a classic PC series, and that surely was not easy. Now with that being said, this video is coming to an end. Only 5 games on the list this year, but they're all of high quality, so if you can, please try them out, and I really hope I piqued your interest in this video. And if I did, well, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, then hit that little bell in the corner to be informed as soon as Digital Foundry posts a video. If you want to help DF out, support DF on Patreon to get years worth of Digital Foundry content available in high quality for download. If you want to talk to me about this video or any of the games in it, write a comment below or follow me and DF on Twitter. And as always, this is Alex bidding you farewell und bis zum nächsten Jahr.